Daf Nun Zayin Amud Beis will begin Nun Zayin Amud Aleph, 10 lines from the bottom at the 2 dots. We learned in the Mishnah, the Rameir says, nice and karf le'ir, that when we measure the tchum of a city, if you have the city, you measure first the karpa of 70 amas and 2/3, which is the surrounding area of the city, the outskirts of the city, and from there you measure the alpine amma. The Chum say, no, you don't measure from the karpav. The halach of karpav is mentioned as follows. If you have two cities, and you have the karpav between them, then that'll join the city together. We view it as one city, and therefore when you measure the tchum, you measure all, it's one city, you measure the tchum in this direction from here, so the people living here, they have alpine mama from this direction. The people in this city have alpine mama measured from this direction because it merges the city and we treat it as one. So now the Gemara is going to analyze this statement. Itma Rav Huna Amar Neisin Karpav L'Zu V'Karpav L'Zu. Rav Huna says that we give a karpav to each one of them. So therefore, if you have the two cities, to say that we merge the cities, you give 70 amas and 2/3, 70 amas and 2/3, and therefore, as long as this is within a distance of 141 1/3, it's considered like one city. We give a karpav to each one of them. But he says, no, it's only one karpav for the both of them, 70 and 2/3 between the two. We don't give a karpav for each one. It's only 70 and 2/3 for the both of them. The Chum say we only say karpav ala bein beis arayas. We only say the karpav between two cities. So you say it's a karpav. Karpav is mentioned in the singular. It's only karpav bein beis ayaris. It's one karpav between the two cities. It's a kashan Rav Huna, amalach Rav Huna, my karpav. That it says karpav in the singular is Torah's karpav. It's the din of karpav. But really, in reality, you give a karpav for each one. When it says karpav in the singular, it means the din of a karpav. Oloilam karpav l'zu v'karpav l'zu. And hachanam mistambra miliktana seifa im yesh l'zu ayin ama v'shirayim l'zu ayin ama v'shirayim oisa karpav l'shteim l'yoisa echad. The seifa says if they have a karpav l'zu, if it has 70 and 2/3 and 72/3 for each one, so you see that you give a karpav for each one of the cities. So shma mina, that you see from here that it's a karpav for each one, like Rav Huna is saying. So now, let us say that this is a kasha and Chiyah Barav. Amar la Chiyah Barav, he says, Halmani Ramerhi. This that it says that it's nice and karpav l'zu, v'karpav l'zu, this is going according to Rameir. Rameir says, in any event, you always give a karpav to a city. So therefore, one city you give a karpav, if there's two cities side by side, it's no worse, so you would give a karpav for each one. But according to the Chachamim, he holds, that says that you don't give a karpav to a city, to a singular city. When you have two cities, he holds that you don't give a karpa for each one. It's one karpa for the both of them. Well, then why do we have to say this in the Sefer? We learned in the Reish Noisim Karpa V'leir, Divra Mer. It says in the Reish Noisim Karpa. More says Shricha. If it would be only from the Reisha, I would think that it's chad l'chad. You give for a singular city, you give a karpa. And also, if it be two cities, you'd also only give a karpav. I would say it's one karpav that's measured, whether it's one city or two cities side by side. That the din of the karpav is a din of a measurement. And therefore, when you measure from a karpav. But I wouldn't think necessarily to say that if you have two cities side by side that you have a karpav for each one, meaning that we view the karpav as an extension of the city, and therefore the cities merge and overlap. I would say perhaps that the karpav, the din of a karpav is that when we only measure from the outskirts. So you only give one karpav. Kamash malan, that when you have two cities side by side, you give a karpav for each one. Kamash malan, if there's two cities, tre yavin, we give two. We give a karpa for each one. So and if it only told me the din by two cities side by side, I would say mishum d'chikatash mishtayu. I would say, why do we give the karpa for each one? Because they're close together. A city, to beautify the city, you need a karpa. You need open surrounding areas around it. So therefore, we give a karpa for each one. But if you have a single city where there's nothing around it, it's all open area, I would say perhaps, well, it's all open area around it anyway. It doesn't need to be beautified. I might think that you don't give a karpa. That's why I need both the Reisha and the Seifa. The Mishnah says if you have three cities that are Mushaloshim, you have three of them, then im yesh bein shnayim b'chitzayna me'av arba'im v'achaz ama v'shlish oisem soy eshloshim li'ois echad. So it says that if you have between them the two outer ones, if you have 141 and a third amas, then you merge them and it's considered as one. So therefore you have 17 2/3 and 17 2/3. Then this is all considered one large area. You measure in this direction from this city, and the people here can go Alpaimam in that direction. You measure in this city from here, and the people from here can go Alpaimam in that direction. So don't you see over here that it is not like Rav Huna? So time at the Ikam Soy. It's only because you have a middle one, so you have 17 2/3, and then from here this separates it, and you have 17 2/3 here. But that is mashma that you only have 141 and a third because of the middle one. If it would be just two side by side, you would only say 70 and 2/3. So let's say Tiyufta de Rav Huna. Amalach Rav Huna, no. It's not like you assume that the cities are in a straight line, the Mishloshim Mamish. Rather, the cities are in a formation like this. It's not between the cities. It's pulled up. It's somewhat in a triangle. So what we say is that El Aroyim, we view it as Kol Shila Matalim Soy Beinei. If you would in an imaginary way, draw the city down and put it between them. V'yem Mishalosh Ve'ein Ben Zelazel Kuf Mem Ama V'achaz V'shlish Asem Soyesh Loishtam Liyos Echad. What it means to say is that over here, the way it is in reality, there's more than 141 and a third. So therefore, this would not merge the cities. As it stands, they would be considered separate cities. But what it means to say, the chiddush over here is that if, however, you would view the city in the middle, and if you would view it in the city in the middle, you don't have more than 141 and a third. You don't have more than 141 and a third on each side, then it merges the city and you view it as one. So now the Gemara asks, we're analyzing this case over here. Now we're analyzing this case, when do we say we can view it and we can look at it like it's in the middle? What is the distance between the outer ones and the middle one? So what distance is it that we say between here and here, between the cities here? What distance is, how far apart is this middle city from the ones on the side? He said 2,000 amas. You can't have a distance of more than 2,000 amas over here. If it's more than 2,000 amas away, the city is not accessible to these cities, so we can't view it like it's in the middle. So I affecting more about how the Amrit Kavase, the Rabbi Barva Hunamistavra, the Amr Yisrael Paim. Now we learned previously in the case where you have a city that's in the shape of a bow. So it's in the shape of a bow, it's a similar idea, and we say we measure the line from here. We measure the line from here, and we say the city is in a bow. These are the houses. We measure it from and we draw an imaginary line over here and measure the Alpayim Amma from this imaginary line. What's the difference between the bow and the line? So one opinion is 2,000 amas, but he said the halacha is that no, even it's more than 2,000 amas. Now it's the same type of idea. To measure from here, it has to be accessible. If the house is here, it has to be accessible from this part. And over there, you say by the bow, you don't need, even if it's more than 2,000 amas, you're not limited to 2,000 amas. And here you're saying you're limited. Why is that? So he says, why do we say that the bow it's not limited? Because there's bottom, there's houses all around. So it is accessible. You don't have to travel this way. You can travel all around the houses. This is one city, so you can travel all around, and therefore it's accessible. However, over here, there's no houses over here, so therefore this is not accessible to this. If it is more than 2,000 amas, that's why it has a limitation of 2,000 amas. V'amrle Rava l'Abaya, and Rava said to Abaya, "Kam yeh bein chitzon lechitzon." What will be the difference? What's the maximum difference between the two outer cities, the two outer villages? So Kam yeh my nachlach mina. What do you mean? What's the difference? Kol she'ilu machtas soy beineim ve'ein bein zelazeh elamei ve'arban ve'achav v'shlish. If what's the difference? As long as when you imagine that the middle city is between them, and you don't have a distance more than 141 and a third, then it all merges together. It's all considered one. What's difference? What the distance is over here? This could be a huge distance, but if the city is large enough so that when it's viewed as being between the two cities, you don't have a distance of more than 141 and a third, then they're all joined together. Yes, even if it's 4,000 amas between the two. So he says, Amrlayan says yes. But again, the city that we had that was shaped like a bow, if you have between the two ends, if you have less than 4,000 amas between them, then you can measure the tchum from the string, from the imaginary string across. You can measure the 2,000 amas from here. So how then? But if you have more than 4,000 amas, then you have to measure it from the bow. You can't measure it from here, from the outside. You have to measure it from here. The difference is because over there you cannot say moli. You cannot say view it as the houses over here fill up this interior area, and therefore it's extended out till here, and you measure it from here. You can't say that by the bow. But over here you can say moli. But over here you can view this as filling the gap over here and reducing the space. So therefore, it shouldn't make a difference. Over there, you cannot say moli. So therefore, since you can't say that we fill this gap in the middle with houses, the tchumim on the two ends have to overlap. So it has to be within 4,000 amas. So you have 2,000 amas on each end. They overlap and they're considered like one, and you can measure it from this line over here. Because you can't say we view the houses as filling this up. We'll see why in a moment. Over here, it doesn't matter if this is more than 4,000 amas. If the house viewed here fills up the space, and so you don't have more than 141 and a third, then it's all considered one. So that's the difference between the two. So over here, since we have this space, how can you say you measure from here? Only if these two ends, the tchum overlaps, which means that they have to be within 4,000 amas. Now, why can you or cannot say moli? So over here, we view it as the house is, this town rather, the town is in the middle of the two. Since it's accessible to both of these, it's accessible within 2,000 amas, then we can view it as being really between them. But over here, it's a question of measuring. Now, you can't measure, you can't say the houses, we view the houses as being here, because when we measure the tchum of the bow, we measure the tchum in this direction, going as if the houses are here. So you can't view the houses as being here to measure from here, and view the houses being here, where they are in reality, and measure in that direction. You can't measure in opposite directions. Either you view the houses as being here or being here. But over here, it's not a question of measuring. It's not a question of measuring the tchum. It's not a question, do we measure this town, do their tchum from here or from here? This town we look at it as being independent. What the issue over here is, since it's accessible, can we view it as being here to consider this as being all one, and we therefore can consider it one, and therefore, when we say that we measure the tchumim in these directions, we measure it as one city. So they're fundamentally different, and that's why the shiurim, we don't apply this shiur that we apply over there by the keshes. He said the people of the city of Aktis, and the tchum is drawn away from the boundary of the Ardashir. And v'ha'ika diglas mafsek yesem mimev arba v'arbaim v'achas shlish. So he says you have the two cities. You have the two cities over here, and we have the cities of Aktisun and Adashir. Now, when they want to measure over here, they want to measure the tchum in this direction, they measure it from here. So each one measures it from the side of the opposite town. When they want to measure their tchum going in this direction, they measure it from here. So to do that, obviously, they consider it to be one. If they measure from Aktisun, they measure the tchum in this direction from Adashir. Adashir, they measure from Aktisun. Now, there's a separation between them. They have the river between them, and the Tigris River between them, and the distance between it is more than 141 and a third. And yet we merge it together to consider it to be one. How can that be? We say that the maximum distance can only be 141 and a third. Nafak Achvila, he went out and showed him, Hanach Atmasa the Shura, the Mivla, Bediglas, Ba'ainam of Shiraim. He showed them that there were, in this river, there were the remnants, the ruins of the walls. Initially, the walls of the city were built out, further out. And he showed the ruins of the wall, and therefore if you take the ruins into account and measure only from the ruins, the clear space is not more than 141 and a third. So when we learned before that you measure the ruins in the town, the ruins in the outskirts of the town are considered part of the town. Here also there were ruins that were not initially visible, but he showed them that they were the remnants of what were the walls before and that existed before. They were ruins. Ruins are still considered to be part of the town, and therefore the clear area, the distance between the two towns, was not more than 141 and a third, and that's why they were able to merge the two together.